Hi everybody, Mike from Starstructure Telescopes again, and in this video we're going to be showing the assembly of a smaller horizon. This is a 16-inch, approximately f4, and it assembles the same as the other videos have shown, except we had a few changes because of the size that we will show as we put this scope together. Before we begin assembling the scope, just wanted to show you the inside of the rocker, show you how compact it is. There's the altitude and azimuth motor, servo cat box. As encoder up front will be the battery compartment with the removable front panel. Here is all the wiring connectors, altitude encoder, 12-volt power supply. That's the encoders from the Podium. This is the Podium attachment. This is one of the changes that we made, because we have a weight distribution bar that I'll show you later, so we had to make the Podium attached to the outside of the scope rather than in the rear handle the way shown on the others. The back panel is removed for any access you need to do to the motors or servo cat box, and that's the rocker. Okay, I'm going to start by putting the mirror box in the rocker. This you would only have to do if you're taking the scope apart. If you're going to transport it using ramps or anything like that, then the mirror box will stay in the rocker. But the first thing to remember is that altitude drive cable. Make sure that that is tight on the altitude bearing, so it's going to go in to the slots on the Teflon. Okay, like the other horizons, over here I have the cable held tight, and then I use the lower truss mount, and I just pinch the cable in there. Works real easy, keeps the cable tight on the edge for easy installation. Alright, so as you can see with the mirror box, they are balanced to sit at the zenith position, so they're heavy back to begin with. So when you grab it, you want to grab it, behind, so it stays relatively level in your hands. Then it goes over the Teflon, making sure that that the cable is in the slot on the front. That's really important because you don't want to move the scope if that cable is sitting on top of the Teflon. So this way it just moves freely. So get in the habit of making sure that that's lined up properly. Alright, I'm going to show installing the altitude drive cable onto the drive pulley. Again, if you can get in there, you want to make sure that that cable is in the slot of the Teflon. That's very important. You don't want it sitting between the Teflon and the altitude bearing. Okay. Now I have my cable here. I'm going to loosen it. I'm going to take it out, keeping it tight. And then what we have to do 2 wraps around the pulley. So it works out really nice with not having anything on this side of the motor. So 1, 2. Okay, I want to make sure that the wraps are not crossing over each other. And then here's one of the changes we had to make, because the other horizons had the disengage lever right here. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough room here to put the lever, so we had to bring it to another place. So all I did was put this little pulley in, which allows me to take the cable over 90 degrees, and then I have my disengage lever here. It hooks up the same way. Everything's the same, and the way it's made is the slot's deep enough so that when you disengage it can't come out of the slot, so everything stays just like that. Next thing we're going to show is the installation of the primary mirror. Like all horizons, it has the removable top plate. But a 16-inch mirror is very manageable, so you can get it just through the top cover. You can easily get it in and out. I am going to show it on the taking the plate off. So the smaller scopes will just have 4 screws, thumb bolts in the corners. Go ahead and just remove them. Remove the top plate. First thing I want to do before getting the mirror, I want to make sure my clips are clear of the mirror so we can go straight in. Okay, I'm going to come over here, grab the mirror, making sure not to palm the front. Very easy into the pushing it into the edge mount. I'm going to push it down a little bit. And I'm going to bring my clips over the mirror. Just like that. And that finishes the install of the primary mirror. And I'm going to reinstall my mirror box top plate. I want to make sure I got the mirror box cover on when I do this, because I don't want to risk dropping anything on the mirror. I'm going to put all the screws in, just put them in loose first. It is a pretty tight fit. And then once you have all 4 screws in, then go ahead and just snug them up. You don't really need to tighten these. Just snug them up a little. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and install the altitude encoder and arm. Very simple. Just it has a slotted end on the bottom. I'm going to slide into this thumb screw, and then I'm going to push the shaft into the hole in the center of the altitude bearing. Snug that up. The bottom screw, you just want to loosely snug it. You don't want to make it tight. Next, we're going to install the trusses, same as the other ones. We've got 2 on equal length for the sides, long one for the back, short one for the front. They can only go on in one direction. Again, plates to the outside. The bottom have recessed ends that the thumb bolts will go into, so recess ends out, plates out, that's how they go on. This is the shorter one. First thing you want to do, I'm backing off all my thumb bolts, so I'm showing about 3/8 of an inch of thread, so everything goes in easy. The bottom goes in from the sides, and then snug up the thumb bolts. You don't need to make these very tight because the thumb bolts catch into the recessed ends. Going with the unequal length truss. Over here. The long truss, which this has the wire in it to complete the connection to the upper tube assembly. Put that on. Next, I'm going to install the upper tube assembly. I want to start by unscrewing my upper truss mounts, showing about 3/8 of an inch of threads. Okay, I'm going to come in, I'm going to drop the top one in like that. And I'm going to go ahead and get this one. I can kind of lay it down now. Don't let it go though. Now I'm going to come over here. Just going to pull the other 2 trusses out, line them up, and then the front end will slide down. What I want to do, just put a little pressure here, and I'm tightening up just to make sure that the upper tube assembly is seated into the upper truss mounts correctly. I want to come here. I'm going to finish my connection. Next thing I want to do is put my light shroud on. It's just like the other ones. Has an angled bottom and 2 drawstrings. I want to make sure that the drawstrings are centered on the bottom of the tube assembly. Okay, pull this over. I want to get it over my upper tube first. Probably could put this on before you put the UTA on. Just put it over the trusses. Alright, now I'm going to pull it down so that the drawstring is above the bottom ring here. Go ahead and tighten this. Stand it up, and then I'm just going to pull it down over the bottom trusses, bottom truss thumb bolts. Kind of just fits in that groove right there, and then I'm going to go ahead and tighten the bottom. And that's the light shroud. Now I'm going to go ahead and install the podium, the DSC Podium. So it goes on the outside like I mentioned. You just drop it in place. Thumb bolt right here to tighten it up. Okay, then the wires are pretty straightforward. I got a Cat 5 plugs into there to complete the encoder connections. 12 volt power supply to the upper tube assembly. This black cable plugs into the DSC port on the servo cat box that completes the connection from the Sky Commander to the servo cat. I have this other connector here that goes to the wire going up the altitude encoder arm, again completing the connection to the upper tube assembly. That connects on the outside of the podium like that. And then here, like the other ones, I'm going to pull out the azimuth encoder, altitude encoder wire. This also comes around the outside, plugs into there, and then you could just put any excess back into the hole just so everything stays tight to the scope. And that finishes the installation of the podium. Real quick, I was just going to show the install of the wheels and handles, same as all the other ones. Goes in the front like that. It's going to hit a stop, which lines up the hole for you, and then just go ahead and thread this in. Both wheels and the rear handles go in the same way. I'm going to show the putting the batteries in. The 16-inch scope, the biggest battery that'll fit, you can get 2 of the 7.2 amp hour batteries in it, which is plenty of power for this little guy. They go under the front panel. This is Velcroed on. You just remove it. In here, you'll see there's 2 cigarette lighter plugs, male ends. One of them is for the servo cat. The other one powers the DSC and the dew system, the secondary dew heater or dew system. The battery fits in. You'll push it back till it hits the stop back there, and then just simply plug in your batteries. Make sure everything's clear, and then you put the front panel back on and close it up. Just wanted to show real quick the connections for the Sky Commander. This is a 12-volt power supply here. This is the encoder cable, the Cat 5, and then this is the DSC cable that plugs in. Here I got the servo cat hand controller. This just velcros to the side of the podium, and then it comes back here and plugs into the hand controller HC port in the front of the servo cat box. So I wanted to shoot the back of the scope for you here, just showing the mirror cell, the opening in the back, collimation bolts. Okay, these are your disengage levers. This is your azimuth disengage lever. That would be engaged. That would be disengaged. Altitude disengage lever. That would be engaged. That would be disengaged. Okay, you don't really want to, on this, when you disengage, you just want to bring it out about 90 degrees, maybe to 100 degrees from this point. That's disengaged. The only time you would go all the way is if you want to take the cable off the spring to remove the mirror box. For collimation, scope of this size, probably going to be somewhere up here, so you can get your hands in there fairly easy to get to the collimation bolts. You could even go up higher and actually get them from the front access panel, the battery compartment, obviously, before you put the batteries in. One of the other things that we have on the smaller scopes is the weight distribution rail. We utilize these 2 holes here, and basically what this rail does is it goes in. It has thumb screws that connect it in here on both sides, and what I can do is I can bring it out to one set of holes, bringing the weight back further, giving me more of a tight top light situation, and then we can even come back to there to give us even more weight if you're using binos or anything like that. You want to make sure that you pull this out evenly and get the screws in. Also, in the second position, this thing can be used as a handle to lift the mirror box out of the rocker, so it kind of is a multi-purpose thing. And then obviously if you were taking the mirror box out, that's why we left this as a removable piece, so you can take this additional weight off of the weight of the mirror box.